Most people don't realize this. You're not supposed to control your emotions, yet we struggle to hold things in. Actually, you're supposed to learn how to be with them without letting them control you. If you've ever been told just calm down or get over it, this video is your safe space, your reset, and your reclamation because it's not about avoiding emotions, but alchemizing them. Now, before we continue, hit the subscribe button right now because in this channel, we don't just share information. It's our home for transformation and we're doing it together. I am in this journey with you. Now, let's go back to this idea of why emotional regulation feels so hard. It boils down to what we've been taught. But let me tell you something radical. You're not too emotional. You are emotionally overloaded and undersupported. We've been trained, you heard me, trained to perform stability, not to embody peace. Your brain, you've heard me say this many times before, is wired to prioritize survival, not serenity. Your limbic system, the flight or fight response center, is often quick to react when you're overloaded with emotions. But your prefrontal cortex, your conscious wise self, can be trained to lead itself into emotional regulation. A good way to help us to begin to do this is to think about your emotions like waves. If we think about them like if they're waves, we understand we can't stop the ocean, but we can learn how to surf. And today, we are going to emotional surfing school. I think that sounds kind of cool. Or maybe it's just me. With that said, let's dig a little deeper into suppression versus explosion. And basically, what happens is we often create emotional boomerangs. When you suppress your emotions, you don't delete them, you store them in your nervous system, in your subconscious. But it's not a matter of if, but of when they will come back. And they can show up in many different ways. It could be anxiety without a clear cause, numbness or disconnect, burnout, or even physical illness. Think of it like hiding dirty laundry underneath your bed. It'll eventually start to pile up or smell. And then that's when you explode emotionally. So, what happens when you explode emotionally? That's actually a signal that you've ignored smaller feelings for too long. What ends up happening is that all that pressure erupts and sometimes on the wrong people. And when you erupt on the wrong people, you then feel shame, you feel guilt, and then you start the loop again of suppressing, ignoring, exploding, regret, you rinse and you repeat. The good news is you can break this pattern because it is a pattern of either suppression or explosion. How do we start processing emotions without being overwhelmed? And this is actually where the healing begins. I was not necessarily the person who exploded, but I was the person who repressed. And that led to it being stuck in my body and me not feeling well. And I also had a series of physical ailments that came as a result of it. Fortunately, I've learned to get better at releasing and not suppressing. I'm not telling you I'm perfect and I got it perfectly down. Like you, I'm human. I have my ebbs and flows. And because I've been that person, because I really do understand what it's like to suppress and hold on to things for dear life, I understand also how we can break free. And I'm going to share with you a 4-step check in that can help you release emotions so that they're not stagnant within you. The first thing to do is name it to tame it. You've heard me say this before in other episodes. For example, you could say, I'm feeling anger. Don't say I'm angry. Say I am feeling anger. Why this difference? There's actual power in separating who you are from what you feel. So when you're saying I'm angry, subconsciously what you're telling yourself is that you're an angry person. And that, if repeated over and over again, can become a part of who you are and your identity. On the flip side, if you say, I'm feeling anger, what you're doing is you're acknowledging what you feel. And that's actually the first step to helping us release. The next thing we could do is anchor it in the body. Slow down, take a pause, and ask yourself, where do I feel the anger or whatever other emotion it is that you're feeling? Where is it in the body? Sometimes we carry, for example, stress in our shoulders, right? The shoulders get really, really tense, or the neck. What we want to do is identify where you're feeling the negative emotion. And once you identify where it's at in your body, and this is why it's good to sit still and be quiet. Where do you feel it? Place your hand there and breathe into it. Sometimes when we breathe into the places in our body where there's tension, it helps you to release the tension. An example that is not necessarily about emotions, it's actually very physiological, and I think most of us can relate to, is a Charlie horse. Any of you here ever had a Charlie horse or a cramp? I've had them at the arcs of my feet and sometimes in my calves. They don't happen often, but I've experienced them. And whenever I have felt a Charlie horse, the best thing that I'm able to do is take deep breaths. And as you breathe in and you focus the breath going into that Charlie horse, eventually the pain, the cramp will start to dissipate. Now, if we take that and we focus on where we're holding emotions in and we breathe into that, it'll help release some of those emotions, some of those feelings. Another thing you could do is move through it. Dance, walk, shake, cry, journal. Emotion is energy in motion. If you suppress it, it gets stuck and stagnant within you. But if you move, you let it out through motion, because emotion is energy in motion, it flows out through you. I'm not saying that this is the cure all, but this is very good steps to help in the instances where we need to regulate emotions, when you're upset, when you're angry, when you're feeling like you just need to calm down. That helps. The next thing we could do is ask, why are you here? What do I need to know? Why is this emotion coming up? Now, you may already know this. You may not need to ask it, but if you don't know why, ask yourself that. Sometimes your emotion is a younger version of you that you suppress for a long time, begging to be seen and not shamed. Because what often happens is that we feel shame and guilt for emotions, particularly if they've been suppressed for a very long time. If you have been suppressing, ask the emotion, why are you here? What do you need me to know? And then go back to step one so that you can release it. There is what I call the alive method, which is one of the most powerful tools that I teach to release emotions. So, what does alive stand for? A, awareness. It goes back to what we mentioned earlier, name it to tame it. So we need to name what's here without judgment. L stands for listen. What's the deeper message? I, invite. Let it be there. Don't fight it. V, validate. Of course, it's safe for you to feel this. It makes sense. E, exhale. Let it go through the body, not around it. This is nervous system hygiene and soul leadership combined. Now, what do I mean by nervous system hygiene? When you're letting yourself feel it, when you're letting things flow through the nervous system, it's basically a mini clean out. So it is hygiene, but it's also leadership, a way for you to lead yourself, for you to lead with your soul, to understand what is within you and what your spirit is communicating to you so you can, again, self manage better. Real control or self management comes from consciousness, being consciously aware of what is happening to you. Control isn't about clenching tighter, it's about standing softer and letting things flow. It's about surfing through those waves in the ocean. And this is equally important. You do not become powerful or empowered by ignoring your emotions. You become powerful by holding space for them. You may ask, what does this mean? Self regulation means you respond instead of react. You create space between feeling and doing. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. This is where you shift from emotional chaos into inner calm. Now, in full disclosure, at first it may feel strange to do this, but the more you do it, like everything else, you build muscles. You build the muscle of emotional regulation. It becomes a practice, that becomes a habit, that becomes a discipline. And the more you do it, the easier it is to regulate your emotions. I don't know about you, but it took me a while to understand this and to get to this point. Hopefully, it'll be much faster for you. The easiest things, the most transformative things in life come from simple processes. If something's too complicated, we need to rethink it. I can tell you this: once you start to emotionally regulate, it'll be hard for you to go back to being in chaos, and it'll be easier and faster for you to center. It's important for us to understand that emotions are messengers, not enemies. Your anger sets boundaries. Your sadness honors your grief. Your anxiety is asking for safety. So, what if emotions weren't the problem, but the portal? Emotions are sacred. They're how your soul, your spirit communicates. They don't need to be silenced, they need to be seen. And once you start listening to them and not battling them, that's where the healing starts to feel like coming home to yourself. And when you can integrate all of the personal growth and development you've been doing for however long you've been doing it. So, what we're going to do is we're going to anchor this and we're going to seal it in through a brief little meditative exercise. You're going to place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, knowing that you are safe. Be sure you're in a quiet space and drop into yourself. Drop into who you are. Sit in the quietness. As you do this, start to take a couple of deep breaths. And what I'm going to ask you to do is take a deep breath over a count of three. 1, 2, 3. Hold it for 3. Exhale for 3. We're going to do that again. Take another deep breath. 1, 2, 3. Inhale. Hold for 3. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. Now breathe at your natural rhythm. As you're in this place of breathing naturally and feeling centered, repeat after me. I trust myself to feel. I give myself permission to slow down. I am safe to be with all of me. Let's breathe that in for 3. Hold for 3. Exhale for 3. Stay in this space as long as you need to. And I want to leave you with this. This is the work. This is how you regulate. This is how you lead yourself and then lead others. It all starts within you. If you felt something shift today, if you felt the power of this, please subscribe, share with someone who can benefit from this, because in this channel, we don't just talk about mindset, we embody transformation. If you go to the description, you'll find a couple of resources you can download. And I also do have one on one personal sessions. Until next time, make it a great day.